All right, people, here we go. I apologize for the real amateur hour. I'm out in Tosa this morning. I have a brand new computer. A lot of things are going differently than normally. And anytime you get a new computer, you're like, all right, I'm a little out of cahoots with what's going on and how to do it. So Mandy's helping me out this morning by running the presentation, and we'll jump right into it. So Kadi, go to the next, maybe go to the next two slides. Let's see what we got here. All right, go to the next one. So last week I wasn't here. I was up in a conference in Minneapolis. I was present in the meeting just to give Maureen to scorecard and grade out as to how I thought she performed on the big stage on a Tuesday morning. I thought she did a nice job, but I think the most important thing, and more so that I wanted to recognize and realize, was more so this conversation around the ALC and those that serve, and right. And there's this whole concept of to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And I really did want to thank out in Lake Country, Maureen, Karen, Nikki, Mary Beth, Annie, Katie, John, Leanne, Bruce, Connie, Robin for supporting our culture, our community. And again, as we talk about with the ALC being speed of the leader, speed of the pack. Connie, next slide. As it relates to North Shore and Tosa, this is the group of folks that really, again, speed of the leader, speed of the pack. They're the ones that are challenging me, our leadership teams, in terms of what it is that we do, how it is that we serve you, where are the ways in which we look at our business model, our value proposition, the cost benefit analysis of our partnerships with you guys. So I wanted to thank Peter, Sarah, Brian, Kevin, John, Stephanie, Natasha, Nancy, Jonathan, Amanda, Aletha, Janine, Will, Abby, across those that lead us in the North Shore and innovation. And, we don't talk about the ALC a whole lot. It's the group that kind of leads quietly in the background, but know that the feedback you provide, either them or us, is what we take to them on a monthly basis to look at what is it that we do and how is it that we do it and how do we support you. Now, Kadi, next slide. The other thing that we talked about last week, and again, something that I don't think gets talked about a lot or frequently, is this concept of KW Helps Local and KW Local Education. Last week I sent out, and I'm going to challenge this group in two ways. Okay. Last week I sent out a note at the end after team meeting and posted on the Facebook group. And I talked a little bit about this Helps Local, designed to help local associates and their families when in time of need. And I also talked about how local education, many of you got your careers or professional careers in the real estate world started with us here at KW. And many of you were supported financially in ways in which that you could go about pouring into your business, working on your business instead of working in your business, right? And I would challenge the group in this way. 16 people came back and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to donate because someone supported me. And I'm not asking for a large donation. It's just more so on every single transaction. They said, hey, I'm going to donate $3 on every transaction. Hey, I'm going to donate $10 on every transaction. I'm going to designate to one of these two funds. I will tell you, over the course of my 6 years of doing this, we've given out north of $150,000 in either local education or Helps Local for families in need. Last year alone in Bold, we gave away 36 scholarships to associates who wanted and needed to change their lives and change the trajectory of their incomes. 36 people went to Bold on a scholarship that otherwise may not have been able to afford it or needed the subsidy in order to get that and pay that back forward. So I would challenge the group. If you want to think about ways in which that you can implement our culture in our community and you want to support those that have supported you, or someone is taking you to lunch or coffee to help you, it's a great way to pay it forward and to help our group help those that are in need to change their trajectory, change their business, change their life, change their income. So that's that. Kadi, any final comments or parting thoughts on those two things as a follow-up or wrap-up from last week?
Yeah, I'd hit on the local funds too. I don't think that people realize how much the Stales do for everyone in the community. And the favorite saying I can say is money is only as good as the good it can do for others. And I think when we talked about this last week, a lot of people came out of the woodwork who need help. And I think we forget a lot of times what people are going through in their private lives and how many people need help. And I think that a lot of times, because everyone in this organization also looks outward, sometimes we forget to look inward. And I think we forget that in our own environment in office, there's a lot of people here who need a little bit extra. So I think that turning a little bit more inward and being able to help one another and really wrap our arms around each other after the last few years that we've had and going into some more tough times. It's really a good reminder to just remember that, you know, rising tides lifts all ships. So I like bringing that up again because it's important.
Totally. And I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, Cotty. You can jump to the next slide. One other thing that I just want to point out, and this is totally a selfish ask. Okay. And it sounds like I'm asking for a lot today, but I don't feel as if I ask a lot of the group in general. On August 18th, my mom and I are, for the third year in a row, chairing or co-hosting an event for the Boys and Girls Club. It's the largest event of the year, largest fundraiser of the year for the Boys and Girls Club. Last year, we had 350 people attend. We raised north of $450,000. Over the course of our 3 years of doing this, we've raised north of $2.5 million for the Boys and Girls Club. It is, oh, fuck. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I tell you, the reason why we pour our heart and soul into this organization is this. My mom and I recognize one thing. If we're going to change Milwaukee and be a change agent for our community, right, we have to start with kids. And I don't think if you've never been a part of the Boys and Girls Club organization or understand who they are, here's what I can tell you. The Boys and Girls Clubs are there for those who need them the most. And what do I mean by that? Children in our city are most vulnerable on nights and weekends. Okay? Children in our city are most vulnerable on nights and weekends. Okay? The Boys and Girls Club is there to serve the children of our community on nights and weekends. Okay? And so what it is that we do, Cotty, you can go to the next slide. We host an event out at Camp Whitcomb Mason, which is out on Lake Keesis, out in Lake Country. Again, it's 300 people. It's the most casual fundraiser you will ever go to. Last year, I wore shorts, sandals, and a Camp Whitcomb t-shirt. And 99% of the kids who attend Camp Whitcomb Mason come from inner city of Milwaukee. The 99% of the kids who go to camp have never swam in a lake. 99% of the kids who go to Camp Whitcomb Mason have never swam in a pool. And it's a way to get them out of their environment and the stresses of their everyday lives in order to, quite frankly, put them in a new environment and give them a different viewpoint on life and get them into camp, get them into different ways to do it. And so, you know, Boys and Girls Club hosts fundraisers all the time. You know, you go to a rubber chicken dinner at the Pfister and you shake hands and kiss babies and you wear a black tie and it's all, you know, this, that, and the other. And if anybody knows me, that's totally the opposite of who I am. And so the reason why we chair this event is we said, hey, you know what? Let's put it underneath the stars outside with campfires going, live music, and a great way to spend time with great people. And so simply my ask is this, is if you're committed to our community and you're committed to the children of the community the way that Maureen and I are, I'd love for you guys to join us. There is absolutely no obligation to it, right? I don't want people to feel as if they're, hey, you know, he's asking for money or this, that, and the other. No, I say the world is run by those who show up. The real reason why we do this is 3 years ago, a friend of ours came to us and said, hey, Boys and Girls Club has been supported by a long time by old school Milwaukee money, essentially, for lack of a better term. And there isn't a lot of the next generation in terms of my generation of friends or things that are coming in and supporting our community philanthropically. And we really need someone to help bridge that gap. And so I just said, all right, cool, we'll do it. And so again, we've been very, very blessed. We've already far surpassed what we've raised at this point for this event at this time last year through some incredible people. And the cool part about it is, again, the event is not designed for you to show up, and I'm not asking you to give of your hard-earned income. My goal is just to ask of you to show up to say, hey, let's learn about the Boys and Girls Club and learn about how the Boys and Girls Club is there for the kids of our city and to change our community, because they're there for the most vulnerable when they're there on nights and weekends. So having said all that, I'll shoot you guys a link. If you want to participate, great. If you don't want to participate, absolutely no obligation. It's probably the one and only time of the year that I'll bring something personal into this world. But I figure this, as Peter talks about, to whom much is given, much is expected. We have a big, wide platform. And so I view it as my opportunity to leverage our platform in order to help our community and pay it forward. So having said all that, hopefully we'll see you on Thursday, August 18th, and apologize for the passion. I mean, you know what? I'm not really apologetic for the passion. It's just, I'm very passionate about the organization, who they serve and why they serve it. So if you would like to participate, we'd love to have you. All right, Cotty, we're flipping it over for compliance updates. Next up, Sheriff Reed. Sheriff Reed, we've been talking about this on many, many occasions, but you know what's funny, Sheriff Reed? If I look at all of our compliance issues and I look at where our errors and omissions insurance is used the most, if you guys had a guess and either throw it in the chat section or I'm out here in Tosa, feel free to speak up. Who do you think uses it the most? Is it the new agents or the experienced agents? Joe Pemberton got it right. He said the experienced seasoned agents. You know why? Because they move fast and they aren't paying attention to details, or they assume something that is incorrect. So Joan, similar to if you watch David Letterman used to go through a top 10 list, Joan this morning is going to go through the top 7 list that she sees all the time that people aren't paying attention to help you mitigate your risk. So Sheriff Reed, what are your top 7 topics?
Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah, we've been, Steph and I have sort of compiled these as the most common questions that we get that are still confusing, even to the most experienced agents sometimes. And so we wanted to clean it up. So these are the top 7. Number 1, the most confusing is multiple representation and designated agency. Those 3 little boxes that you check in the listing contract and in the buyer agency contract. Can you explain these? So I'm giving you a level of where you should be. If you can explain the differences between these 3 choices, call me or call Steph, or anytime we're willing to sit down and go over this again. But don't assume that you know the answer. Make sure that you know the answer. Number 2, do you understand the difference between rules? This happens almost daily. Between delayed, withdrawn, and excluded listings in MLS. Can you avoid sanctions? Erica and the other MLS people, I get a copy of the email that's sent to you if you are getting threatened with a sanction. They're very forgiving on the first time, but certainly not on the second or third time. Make sure you understand the differences between the rules at MLS. There are a lot of them. They can be confusing, but it's your obligation to put your listings in correctly, knowing how to do the statuses. Number 3, seems to come up because we have a lot of deals maybe that didn't end so well at closing, and now there's situations and issues coming up post-closing. Do you know how to react to a post-closing client when issues with the property repair? You've been taking care of that client throughout that whole transaction. They probably are maybe a repeat client. You feel very bound to them and responsible for them. But then they get into this problem after closing that maybe the seller didn't disclose, or things are falling apart or whatever, and you want to continue that help, a responsibility that you felt to keep helping this client. Please don't. This is a time that the issues need to be resolved between those 2 parties, the buyer and the seller, and maybe sometimes with the help of an attorney. But your real estate role does not want you in that post-closing situation. You could be drawn into more liability and attached to any lawsuit that might bloom out of this issue. So please make sure that you check with Steph or me in these situations, but know that your role is finished at closing. The next slide. Number 4, how do you navigate your client and compose a notice of defect? we get these questions quite a bit. You know, I love the quote on the top of this page. This has never happened to me before. How do I do a notice of defect? Well, I'm glad you're calling and I'm glad you're asking the questions, but make sure that you have knowledge on how to draft a notice of defect correctly, what that list of notice of defects comprised of, and if you get one that's incorrectly filled out from a co-broke, make sure that you contact us and we can sort through that. But there are an awful lot of agents out there, and some in our organization as well, that have never done a notice of defect. So when they're posed to do it, they may not know the correct way to do it. Make sure you know how to do it, and check with our YouTube videos or call Steph or me to walk you through it if this has never happened to you before. Number 5, how do you execute a termination of a listing or buyer agency contract with your client? There is an amendment to the listing contract. There is an amendment to the buyer agency contract, and use those documents to terminate just in the very same way for either a listing or a buyer agency contract. Know your documents, make sure that you utilize that amendment to those documents. You'd be surprised how many questions I get about this. Number 6, how do you fill out a cancellation and mutual release for your client, and who should get the earnest money? Age-old question in real estate. First of all, as a real estate agent, please don't ever say, oh, you'll get your earnest money back. Or don't say, oh, you won't get your earnest money back. That definitive answer is not our role. That is a legal advice. That is a legal answer, and we cannot do it. The contract is vague enough for open interpretation on these things, and that's where lawyers sort it out for us. But we as real estate agents cannot make those definitive answers. So the general rule is if they're getting out on a contingency, most likely they'll get their earnest money back. May have an argument with the seller, but per the contract. If they're defaulting, most likely they won't get their earnest money back, or some kind of an agreement with the seller. Make sure that you know this when you're filling out a cancellation and mutual release. We all hate to do it. We all hate this never happens to you. But when you have to do it, make sure you know the rules in doing it. And number 7, the last one, can you explain and negotiate the right to cure? Right to cure in the inspection contingency and the right to cure in the appraisal contingency. That one is new, the appraisal contingency right to cure. Make sure that you can explain, these are the key words, and negotiate what that right to cure, giving that right to cure to the seller means. What it means to your buyer, if you're the listing agent, what it means to your seller. Be able to negotiate and be able to explain. Those are your duties. Last slide. Oh, maybe it isn't the last slide. The special one that has a lot of questions is the RECR, the real estate condition report. Just basically, it has to be completed only by the owner. Keep your fingers off of it, whether they've lived in it or never lived in it. Know who's exempt. Don't guess, don't assume, don't ask your neighbor. You find out who is exempt from filling out a RECR, or call Steph or me. What is the rescission right of the buyer? Make sure you understand it. You can't fully explain it to a client because you're not a lawyer, but the paragraph is stated on the front page of the real estate condition report, which gives that buyer the rescission right. And the final thing that we actually had a active lawsuit regarding the fact that it was an incomplete record. One of our agents let their seller fill it out, missed some of the marks, and then there became a problem. And it was because the record was not complete. So it has to, every box has to be checked. And if it's a yes, it has to be explained. Okay, I think this is the last slide now. You are responsible for knowing these things. It's part of your license. It's the responsibility you have to be licensed and work with Keller Williams. So if you're unsure, we've got a myriad of YouTube topics, and Steph and I are always available to help sort these out for you. But if it goes to litigation, the courts always tend to side with the public. So make sure that you know these 7 most common questions.
Guys, it again, as we've talked about over the last several years, the market of the moment has created an environment for a lot of litigation. And I think sometimes the speed in which we work and act has allowed some of this litigation to show up within our lives. And so we were sitting around one day kicking the tires and, chewing the rag. And I said to Joni, what are your top 7 things that we get in trouble for? And she said, well, why don't I put it together? So there you go. It's the 7+ things that we get in trouble for. And it's amazing to me how often we get phone calls from people who've been in this business for a long time, who've done a lot of transactions and believe it to be A, but the answer is actually B. Or the other issue that shows up often is the agent overextends their fiduciary, providing legal advice or notices or different things like this. And then the client gets upset because the agent promises one thing that the agent can't deliver on. And what happens when you overpromise and underdeliver in this business? You get either you lose the client or you get sued. So be sure to make sure or leverage Sheriff Reed, Lieutenant Kennard, and all of their resources that they can to help you mitigate your risk when anything sticky shows up. So Sheriff Reed, thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, Kati, I'm flipping it over to you for what do these guys need to know for marketing and resource updates?
Sure, I hit on this last week, but I saw Tammy Herpel at the copier yesterday and I was like, how's it going? She's like, I have 4 listings. I'm running around like crazy. They're all going live the same day. I'm like, what can we help you with? Do you need help with your marketing? She's like, I don't even have time to do marketing. And I was like, we can do your marketing for you. You remember this, right? She's like, you guys do that for us? I'm like, yes. We'll hit more into this next week. A lot of the pieces have been slowly replaced by some of our older, not so useful tools. So if you haven't ordered marketing from us in a while, give it another shot, test it out, see if you like it. It's really going to be something you'll be impressed by. So it'll be a quick turnaround time. We'll do all the design for you for free. If you want to get it printed from a local print shop, we'll send the file over so you can pick it up. We're really working on making this an actual easy button for you guys. So that original promise that we had that you guys can get marketing at your fingertips, customized to your brand and ready to pick up. So Lindsay's going to dive more into this in the next coming weeks, but if you haven't been to the Marketing Concierge tab at kwrealtymke.com in a while, check it out. Things have been swapped out, and always looking for your feedback in the usability of it and the quality of the product. So continue to give us that feedback, and we're going to continue to make it a tool that's a really, really great leverage piece for you. One other piece I wanted to remind everyone on and kind of give an update on, we haven't talked about Keller Concierge since December of 2021 is when we rolled this out. We now have 85 Milwaukee agents who've been certified and approved for the program. And we have now vendors who've all been vetted and onboarded. So in December, we were kind of just working on getting vendors approved and getting you guys certified. Everyone's there now, and this tool is actually ready to use. The vendors have all gone through their vetting process. So they all have to have a license in their trade. They all have to be bonded and insured. They had drug tests, background checks. Keller Offers reviewed all their previous jobs, made sure they were of good quality, and they've been onboarded. So they're there and ready to be used. So what is the Keller Concierge Ready to Sell program? This program is going to allow your seller to prep their home for the market with 0 upfront costs to them. So this Ready to Sell program, your seller is agreeing to use the Keller Offers preferred lending, which is Enter Bank. So they're going to get 0% interest for 12 months. And the seller must agree to a hard credit pull. The credit score requirement is a 660 or higher. And the seller is going to apply for up to $75,000 to fix their home and get it ready for the market to sell. We recommend obviously factoring in a budget overage when you're kind of working through this and talking through it with your sellers. But this is ready to go and to be utilized. So if you're one of those 85 agents who got certified start thinking about using it now that there's some vendors in there. So a few success stories. This is one from Santa Clara, California. This is a luxury listing. The pre-renovation value on this home was 1.2 million. The project costs that they got approved for were 240,000. And then they sold it for 1.5 million. So their ROI on it was 142%. Another success story came out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The pre-renovation value was 145,000. The project costs were 27.4. They sold it for 195. So the seller made $22,598 based on the renos that they did.
Yeah. And Cotty, let me ask you a question. What's the interest rate for 12 months on this?
0%.
Oh, 0.0%. Okay, just confirming. And how long? 12 months? Yeah, that's right. And what happens? How do they get paid back? It gets paid back on the
Sale of the home.
Sale of the home. So if you're thinking about, I'm walking in, I need to leverage some capital. I could really make some incredible cosmetic updates to help our sellers see a return on their investment and maximize the return on that investment. And yet they've lived in the home since the 1980s, and that dark wood mahogany kitchen with linoleum floors just isn't cutting it for today's buyer. And they need to leverage $50,000 to kind of do some cosmetic updates to get the home. Oh, it is 0% interest rate for 12 months. And you want to help them maximize their return on their investment. It's a great value add for your clients. I will tell you this, in a market that is getting more competitive with the most amount of licensed associates in the GMAR and inventory that continues to remain suppressed, it's a bullet in your chamber to help you realize, how do I capture more listings and take advantage of the market of the moment? And in an environment where people's assets have gone down by 20%, they don't have a lot to leverage against. And when I say assets gone down by 20%, I'm referring to the S&P 500 in the stock market, right? And so if they're going to leverage their assets in order to create renovations, and yet they don't have to do this in this environment, again, it's a great tool for you to utilize and market in order to attract listings. And then once you have listings, what do listings have, Cotty?
They have babies.
That's right. And so for every listing we get, we should have how many babies?
3.
Perfect. All right. I'll let you keep going.
All right. So what I would be doing if I were you guys is marketing this tool, talking about it on your social media, adding it obviously into your value proposition and your listing presentation. We're going to create some tools for you. We'll share them out so that you guys can just rip them off and duplicate them, or just share them right away. So I would start talking about this and start utilizing it. If you haven't been one of those 85 agents who got approved, or you joined us since December, this is how you go ahead and get started. We'll make sure to post this on Facebook or get this out to you as well. But you just go to app.kelleroffers.com, click on the Access on Demand training, and knock it out. Brad, I know you're certified. How long did it take?
It took me 3 days.
Takes about 3 days to get certified, and you can go ahead and start marketing it. So start using it, start talking about it, and let us know how you're liking it.
Beautiful. All right, Cotty, rolling up. I'm taking us home. All right, upcoming training and events. Here's what I also know. In a market that's going down, and we're going to talk about market trends, I see too many people focused in their business and not working on their business as we head into the third and fourth quarter. Okay. Those people are going to get caught swimming in the bay as the tide goes out, and we're going to find out who's wearing swimsuits. Okay. If you don't know the reference, look up Warren Buffett. He talks about it all the time. So Mega Agent Camp, August 23rd to the 24th. If you haven't registered by now, you know what? I think you're missing the boat. Guess what? You also don't have to go to Austin, Texas in order to take advantage of the opportunity. They have digital registrations as well. Cotty, go on. Next up, we've talked about flexing our muscle, engaging our people in a great way to introduce people to each other. Tomorrow, or throughout the month of August, Focus Title and various vendor partners will be doing Pete's Pops pop-ups across the offices. Guys, here's a great way to do this. Last year, I realized on August 1st, we had a very similar event in the office, and everybody brought their kids. The energy in the office was incredible. So if you live in and around the North Shore office tomorrow, Tosa, we're coming for you. Lake Country, we're coming for you as well later in the month of August from 4 to 6 o'clock tomorrow in North Shore, sponsored by Jenny Klug and the Focus Title team. Bring your kids, bring your family, bring your clients. Pete's Pops in and around the office for a happy hour on August 3rd. Next up, Here's what I also know. People hate lead generating. What do I call lead generating? It's forced human interaction. And yet, if you don't embrace this reality, you're going to be out of business in the next 12 months. It's just the truth. Okay. A lot of people have been really good lead receivers, but they don't know how to hunt. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down barriers and we're going to hunt together. What we've found, and we do this together as a team on the leadership team, we will lead generate together as a team. And it's amazing what happens when energy happens together. So in every KW office from North Shore to Innovation to Lake Country on Thursday night at 5 o'clock, if you don't know how to lead generate, or you're really good at lead generating, because we have a handful of people that are really good at lead generating who plan to show up, do it together in a group. So we're going to do it. We're going to be modeling the behavior. Mandy will be leading North Shore. Josh will be leading in Innovation, and Deej will be doing it in Lake Country. We're going to model the behavior of what good lead generation looks like, and how do you have forward conversation to add value to your clients. Again, you can be a lead receiver and maybe stick through the market of the moment, or you can be a hunter. Understand what hunting looks like when it relates to lead generation. And it's not, hey, who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? It's, hey, Bridget Ty, hope all is well. Tell me about the 2 kids. What's Danny up to now? Tell me about his new job. Tell me what's going on. That's how you lead generate. And then you want to say, hey, is there anything that as it relates to your house of how I can help you? Oh, you need a gutter guy. Oh, you need a landscaper. Oh, you need this, that, and the other. That's lead generation. Let's do it together Thursday night at 5 o'clock across every office. All right, Cotty, next up. Lastly, probably one of the most impactful speakers I've heard in a long time. And again, we don't bring guest speakers in often because I think there's a lot of below average guest speakers. And I will tell you this is a way above average guest speaker. James Shaw, who leads the Pivot Shift Ahead page. In the last 2 years, there's not one coach in the industry who has helped people become millionaire real estate agents than James Shaw. He's here in Milwaukee next week, August 10th from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock at the New Berlin Ale House. If you haven't registered, you are missing out. Hope you're going to make it in the next 12 months. Next up. Okay. I'm going to create a little fear with this group. Lastly, August training camp. It's been sent out. You can see a plethora of opportunities. We've talked a ton about ways in which that we're planning to leverage and flex our muscles. You can see Pete's Pops is showing up across all 3 offices. Again, the next 3 weeks, bring your families, bring your kids, show them where you work, give them a little sugar. Why not? And then send them home, put them to bed. Mega agent camps at the end of the month. And then I'll be hosting another lead gen for listings there on the 31st. Make sure you check it out. There's a ton of opportunity to work on your business here in August. The reason why you're going to start to see the training calendar fill up with a plethora of opportunities to pour into your business is we're heading into 3rd and 4th quarter. You work on your business in the 3rd and 4th quarter in order to take advantage of the 1st quarter activities. And if you don't hit your 1st quarter, there isn't enough business in the 4th quarter for you to make up your goals. All right, next up.
Got a question here quick in the North Shore, Peter.
Because I read the calendar, I noticed that it says for Mega Agent Camp Watch Party. Are we going to be broadcasting?
Yeah,
virtual here
so
in the Market Center?
Peter's question when looking at the training calendar is he saw mega camp watch parties. Yeah, if you're not going to Austin and you want to come in the Market Center to watch some of the major things by Gary Keller and the big sessions, we will be broadcasting them in all 3 of the training centers. So if you don't register yourself and you're not going to be there, pop down into any of the training rooms in any of the 3 locations and we'll have them on the TVs.
Peter Gossman, God bless you. When people ask me how I make it in this business, by the way, Peter is celebrating his 3rd year anniversary in real estate and he's absolutely killing it. People want to know why people like Peter Gossman, Bridget Ty, Betsy Williamson kill it in their first 12 months because they show up to everything and they read the training calendar. What a coincidence. So, all right, moving on. All right, next up, Market Insights, 5-county metro area. Guys, this week I pulled the weekly stats. Last couple of weeks I've been pulling monthly, I've been pulling quarterly, and we haven't taken a look at the micro environment of the market. So let's take a look at the micro environment of the market. As a reminder, our phrases of focus for the year in 2022 is be resilient, take care of each other, and bring the noise. And if I look back, and this is totally unintentional, if I look back as to what my team meeting was for this morning. We talked about being resilient and working on your business in order to see through the market of the moment in order to thrive. You have to survive in order to thrive. 2, we talked about taking care of each other. We talked a little bit about KW local education. We talked about the ALC. We talked about KW cares. And then something that's important to me in my heart and what I'm passionate about is I would welcome you out to the Boys and Girls Club, because we have to take care of each other. If we don't take care of our communities, we won't have a community to serve. And if we don't have a community to serve, you don't have an income to make. Something to think about. Lastly is bringing the noise. How do you compete with noise? Bring more noise. So here we go. Kadi. First up, I'm looking at showing time. North America. 3 weeks ago is the last time I showed this to you guys. And when we looked at Wisconsin versus our peer group, Wisconsin was actually outpacing the peer group on trends. Okay. What you see on the top line is 2020 weekly average. The dark blue line is 2021 weekly average. The orange line is 2022 weekly average as it relates to showing time across North of America. Okay. North of America. Got it. So let's take a look at Illinois and how our peer groups to our south are doing, because it's the closest comparative market. Illinois, now Kadi, go back, is trending very similarly to North America. Now go back to Illinois. Look, we're starting to see the impacts of depressed inventory, rising rates, and continued appreciation. Now let's take a look at Wisconsin. We're in a very fortunate position from this standpoint. Wisconsin's macro economy and the housing environment we're in is still relatively very healthy versus our peer group. And yet, what are you starting to notice? We're following the trends of the national markets. What happens on the coasts eventually moves to the Midwest. Shocking. I'll also give you a little tip, and this was not in the presentation today. I read an incredibly interesting article that talked about migration patterns across the US in the next 50 years. You want to know the number one reason for migration in the US is going to be, they predict, in the next 25 to 50 years? Anybody have a guess?
Heat.
I like it. Love the participation. It's water. Okay? It's water. What do we have an abundance of? Fresh water. Okay? And I'll use another example. Aurora, Colorado just outlawed people using their sprinklers for their lawns, so much so to the point that they now have enacted any new home construction, they have to have turf on their lawns. They're not allowing people to plant grass. So as we think about migration patterns and where we live in the communities that we serve and how we make our income, we're in a very fortunate position to be in a place of abundance of fresh water. It's just a trend that people are paying attention to. And it was an article that I read that talked about this freshwater migration pattern of population across the US in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Something to pay attention to. You'll notice it'll start to show up in your Wall Street Journal newsfeed now that I said it, because everybody's listening. All right, here we go. Next up. So as we take a look at units under contract here, okay, what you need to pay attention to, the red line across the middle of the page is the latest 24-week average. Latest 24 weeks equals last 6 months, okay? Last 6 months on a weekly average, we've seen 543 units go under contract on any given week. What we've seen for the last 3 weeks in July is we are now starting to trend to average. If anything, as I talked about in May and June, is I believed the market in 2022 apexed in June. Okay, so we're starting to see the slowdown in activity and units going under contract, right? It's on par with the latest 24 weeks, right? And we will see as we start to get into August, into September, whether we see the fall bump that we've seen the last 2 years, or the trend line continues where the market continues to slow. Something to pay attention to. Next up, sales absorption rates. Sales absorption rates is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in a given week. It's the indication of demand. Again, the latest 6-month average is 13.5% of the total inventory goes under contract in a given week. The last 3 weeks, we've been hovering around 12%. Okay. And if you look, the last 3 weeks have been hovering around 12%. And then you look back at the other 21 weeks that preceded it. What do you notice? We never had a week below 12%. So we're beginning to see some softness with the market reacting to rates, price appreciation, and depressed inventory. Something to pay attention to. So if I'm sitting here thinking about this and I'm saying, I'm starting to see signs of a little bit of softness here in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin market. What should I be doing? I should be joining us on Thursday night at 5 o'clock to lead generate with my friends to understand what it is that I need to do in order to stay relevant. Okay, next up, expireds and withdrawns. Interesting stat line. Last 6 months on a weekly average, we see about 91 expired listings. Okay, what have you noticed about the last 3 weeks in July? 129, 117, 122. On average in July, we've seen a 33% increase in expireds. Okay, there is I totally spelled that wrong. Opportunities to are arising to be the second listing agent. Again, a way to diversify your lead generation if you've never focused on expireds and FSBOs or withdrawns. There's plenty of them in the marketplace, something to be considering as you relate to what am I going to do differently in order to make more income than I made last year in a softening market. Next up, Cotty. Okay, new inventory units. Okay, we're seeing about a 10% reduction in new listings coming to the market than what we saw in June of this year. Okay, June was about the apex, as I continued to say, and I said it in May, right? June was about the apex. On average, over the last 3-4 weeks, we're seeing about 670 new listings on a given week for the last 3 weeks. That's trending on par with the latest 6-month averages, okay? So we're starting to see the market come back into reality in terms of the slowdown or softness as we head into third and fourth quarter. Great opportunity to work on your business and not work in your business. Next up. And here's where I'm going to totally challenge your thought process as it relates to lead generation. Okay. Here's what you need to know. Good news, bad news scenario. It's good news, great news scenario. The good news is the tide is rising on inventory, and you can see this over the last 6 months. Okay. That's very positive. As we start to see the softness of demand, days on market are actually elongating a little bit, which is very, very healthy. It doesn't seem that way because people are starting to freak out, but there's a recency bias as to why they're freaking out. Okay. But here's what you need to know. In July of this year, there were 6,677 units on the market. In March of this year, when a lot of people think the market starts to pop, there were 5,614 listings on the marketplace. Okay. From March of this year to July of this year, there was an increase of 1,000 units, which was a 20% increase. Now, here's what I also know. What usually happens March, April, May, June is people stop lead generating and they become lead receivers. And they're so caught up in their business and doing all their activities that they stop focused on what it is that they made them successful March, April, May, June. They stop their activities. They sit here in July. They say, I can finally take a breath. Okay. Here's what I also know. Those increase of 1,000 units that came to the marketplace from March of this year to July of this year, those that lead generated consistently, routinely saw it show up. How do I know it? There was 22 million in incremental commissions available within the marketplace. The question was, did you see a 19% increase from your March income to your July income? The question is, did you see your activities increase March, April, May, June, so that you could take advantage of the market July, August, September? Okay. And my question to you as we leave team meeting, as we start to realize some of the softness that's hitting the market, right? And things that are starting to slow down and that we're coming out of the apex of the marketplace. Are you being consistent with your activities to realize the income potential? Because there's $22 million in commissions more in July of this year versus March of this year. And yet I know a lot of people stopped lead generating and stopped doing their activities March, April, May, June. So the opportunity is there. The question is whether you will realize it or your neighbor sitting next to you will realize it, because someone will. There's 6,600 homes for sale. Those 6,600 homes will sell. It's just whether you're taking advantage of the income opportunity or somebody else is. Guys, that's your team meeting for this week. It's August 2nd. Have a great week. Lake Country, I'll let you jump over to the Lake Country meetup. North Shore, Mandy's going to lead you through new listings. Tosa, I'm going to lead you through new listings. Let's see what you got, people. All right, guys, have a great week.